Hello students, it's Dr. Yu. Welcome to part 2 on how to write a good cover letter. Here we're going to talk about formats, content, and design, and we're going to get into the actual writing part and what exactly to do to ensure that you have a great cover letter. In the first part we talked about principles and some things about business writing that you have to make sure you know, so that way you can meet all the conventional issues with cover letters. Now we're getting into the format, content, and design. So here's what we're going to cover. We're first going to look at the anatomy of a cover letter. So there's certain things that you have to make sure your cover letter includes to hit all the important parts. Then we want to make sure we know the 3 content formats, because there's 3 different formats of cover letters. And I want to show you each of the 3 and the advantages and disadvantages of each format. And then we're going to talk about the sandwich. Now, those of you who took my public speaking class, yes, the sandwich is coming back, but now in a different form with cover letters. We'll talk about that. Oops. And then fourthly, we're going to talk about personalization. Personalization is how we make the cover letter personal to the company. Well, I'll tell you different strategies for doing that and how to do that in a way that's also time efficient. Because I know that you'll be sending out quite a few of these and you don't want to have to write a cover letter from scratch for every position. And I definitely don't call for that either. So let's get to it. Let's start with the anatomy of a cover letter. So here is a typical cover letter. This is paragraph format. And here are all the parts of a cover letter that you need to know. First, you have the header. So the header is up here. Now you're going to use the same header as your resume for a cover letter, and we'll talk about that later, but you got to make sure you have your name on it, of course, and all your contact information. Then you have the date here. So you'll put the date that you wrote the letter, and we'll talk about, and there's not much else to say, but other than put the date, and just put it in month, day, and year format. A lot of people put the numerical form. Don't put the numerical form. In business writing, you spell it out. Then you have something called the inside address. This is critical to personalization. So you're going to have the address to a particular person who the letter is addressed to, and you're going to put the actual address. So this is going to involve some internet research. Oh, I have to do research? Yes, you have to do research on the company you're going to apply to, which is good anyway because you need to know who you're applying to anyway and what you're getting yourself into. So this is part of that. So every cover letter has an inside address. Your address is already up here. I've seen people put 2 addresses. They put the inside address and then they also put their own. Your address should already be up here anyway, so you don't need to have it again in here. Then you have the salutation. The salutation is the opening. And then we're going to talk about what to do for the salutation, because there are good salutations and there are bad salutations. And then in here, where this line is, you have the content. And then we're going to talk about, what do I write for a cover letter? Well, much of this lecture is going to be about is what exactly do you write? And then you have the closing, and there's not much to the closing other than I usually end with sincerely for a business letter. I've seen people say like truly yours, that's love letter, that's not cover letter, okay? So I understand cover letters are lover letters, but don't like end super personally. And then you have the signature line, and this is going to have your name. And then technically you can add your signature here, so you can do like a little wet signature and fill it out, and I'll show you how to do that. And then lastly, you have the enclosures. So anytime, see, it used to be when you had a cover letter, the resume was like physically attached to it. And so this was like a physical. So when you used to hand a physical cover letter with a physical resume, you would have enclosure to say there's another thing that goes with this document. I still use it because if, for example, I want to have a page 2 where I have my qualification sheet or something, then I'll still put that. And I still just put it just to look more formal. So enclosure, when you apply electronically, you would just put whatever other documents you are submitting besides the cover letter. So of course that would include your resume, but it also might include e-portfolio, or it might include, I don't know, your some other document, professional bio or something. So then you would put e-portfolio, resume, professional bio, something like that. Okay, with headers on cover letters, there's not much different than resumes, and that is the fact. You use the same exact header. You're going to use the same exact font. You're going to use the same, oops, that went too far. Okay, so you're going to use the same exact everything for your header as of your resume, just as you will for your cover letter. So use the same, so you notice Robert Medenvi, it's formatted this way. Same thing here. Cover letter is formatted the same exact way. The idea is you want your resume and cover letter to look like they go together, like it's a packet, like it's like a deck of cards. And so you can tell by just the design that the two went together. So literally what you can do is you can write your resume and then do File, Save As, and then call it cover letter, and then just delete everything underneath the header on your resume and then replace it with the cover letter. And then do one of the 3 cover letter formats. Now, in the resume, this guy had his job target at the top too, or what he is. You could technically still put that here too, like put it under here and then put the date and such, so that's possible. But at the very least, you want to make sure you keep the same header and the same fonts and everything else that you did on the resume. Then you have the date and inside address. The key things are, you're going to have the date in which the letter is written. So the day you wrote the letter is the day that you write it. And remember, it's month, day, and year. Then have 3 empty line spaces. So you generally try to have 3 empty line spaces between the date and then the name of the recipient in the inside address. Now, we'll talk about, once again, how do I decide who the name of the recipient is. But for now, just know that you're gonna address your letter to a real human being, not just to stuff, okay? Then you're going to put the person's title and position. I've seen it so that title is one line and position's the next line. It's just about space at that point. If you need more space, I would probably put title and position on the same line. So I would put president, of X department, for example, something like that. If you want to do company name, you can put company name here. So you put president and then you'd put Mark Pharmaceutical Company, whatever. Then you put street address. Now, I'm starting to see this less often where they put the full street address, but I still put it just to show I did that research, that I went and I looked up your address on the website, because one thing I want to do in the cover letter is show that I did my homework on the company. So I would put the street address and then definitely city, state, and zip code. So at least we know that you're thinking of the right area and all that. So the date, 3 lines, space, name of the person, their title, position, the company name, street address, city, state, and zip code. So here's how it would look in a cover letter. So we have the date here, and then we have 3 line spaces, and then Joe Smith, HR recruiter, UMB Bank, street address, city, state, and zip code. And that's the inside address. Now, the salutation. And this goes with the inside address too. What if I don't know who to address it to? Okay, and that's common. So I've made a little continuum here. On one side, we have the most preferred solution, which is the awesome solution, and then the least preferred solution, which is the lame solution. So we want to avoid being lame, okay? So don't be lame, okay? Be awesome. Now, when job postings come out, a lot of times there isn't a person's name associated with the job posting. And sometimes the recruiter is listed, and that's nice, but sometimes it isn't. So here's kind of the hierarchy of what to do in salutations. If the hiring manager's name is listed in the job posting somewhere, if it says, if you have any questions or for any questions, correspondences, anything, please contact this person, put that person's name on the cover letter. So you'll address it to the hiring manager, whoever the person claims to be in charge of the hiring process. If there isn't a hiring manager listed, then the recruiter or HR manager of the company. So the hiring manager, so there's a difference between the hiring manager and the recruiter or HR manager. So when a company wants to hire, they might form a committee of people who aren't necessarily recruiters and HR people themselves. So for example, let's say it's an engineering company and they want to hire a new electrical engineer. What the company might do is they might put together a committee of other engineers and the assistant manager, and none of them have anything to do with hiring, but they're going to help select the next electrical engineer. So the assistant manager might be the hiring manager for that committee, and they're going to be making a lot of the big decisions for who they interview and such. Now, a lot of times the hiring manager is not listed, but they'll list the recruiter or HR manager on the job posting. So the job posting will say contact X recruiter. So then address your cover letter to a recruiter, or the recruiter might have posted the job posting themselves. So in that case, address it to the recruiter. Now, if there isn't a recruiter, let's say it's a company website and it's a company job posting, then what I would do is I would look up the HR manager. See if the HR manager is listed on the website. So go to the company website, go to About Us, see if you can find out who runs HR, and then see if you can address the letter to that person. Another thing that I've done, and it's worked, is I literally just called the company. and I just said, hey, I'm interested in applying for XYZ job, who should I address my cover letter to? Is there an HR manager, or is there somebody who I can address it to? And sometimes they'll give you a name. They'll say, oh, address it to Mark so-and-so. Cool. Sometimes people will say, well, we want to keep that confidential. Okay, at least we tried. No big deal. And you just move on. But definitely you want to address it to these top two. But let's say that's not an option. Okay, then address it to the company CEO or owner of the company. Because at the end of the day, you're working for their company, right? If you apply at a company, at some level, you're reporting to the CEO or owner of that company. Even if it's like multiple levels of hierarchical chains ahead of you, you're still applying for their company. So at the very least, just go to their website, find out who owns the company, put the owner's name on the cover letter. Because it's their company. It's their company. You will still beat 75% of the competition who, there's not a recruiter listed on job posting, so I'm not going to put anybody's name. Okay, you already beat them because you at least went and looked up who the owner was, and they didn't. Now, if that's not available, so now you get into shady territory, because I'm like, if they don't have a website that even lists the owner of the company, this is probably a shady organization, or not necessarily, but if it's like a company some companies post anonymously for reasons, like they don't want people to know that they're hiring for this position. So sometimes this does happen where like, you don't know even what company you're applying to. Just got to be wary of those, because some job postings are scams too. And we haven't talked about scams at all, but there are job posting scams out there. But let's just say for some reason the website doesn't list the company owner. So it's a legit company. There's no company owner. You call them and they're like, nope, we keep that all private. Okay. Then you go to generic position. So then you would say, dear hiring manager. And then you would say the hiring manager, the address, and so forth. And then after that, if you still can't do that for some reason, I don't even know why you couldn't do that, then you would just do dear company name, dear Disney, dear Ubisoft, dear whoever. Okay, so that's the least preferred. These are the least preferred. We try not to do these things. These are good. These are good. This is what we want to see. So once again, you have to put the effort in. If you're just trying to be lazy, well, I don't want to do all that. I'm just going to put company name. Well, you're lazy. Okay, so that's lame. Lame. Okay, so we don't want to be lame. We want to be awesome, because awesome gets me jobs. Lame doesn't get me job. Okay, so think here. Put that effort in. It's going to be worth it, because you're going to apply for fewer jobs and you're going to get more interviews. What most people do, spray and pray people do this. Spray and pray people do that. They're on the job market longer. They get frustrated. Nobody hires them. I applied to 100 jobs. Nobody hires me. Okay? We want to be the qualitative people. We apply to 5 jobs and we get 3 interviews. So much better. So much better. What about, and I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, what about to whom it may concern? Okay? So, to whom it may concern. Well, to whom it may concern goes, it goes into the fiery pits of hell is where it goes. Because it's like the worst way to start a cover letter. It's the worst way to start anything, to whom it may concern. Imagine a cover letter or a love letter. Dear to whom it may concern, okay? Dear whoever. Okay, terrible. It doesn't say anything. It's like dear whoever and then whatever, okay? Not good. Never start with to whom it may concern. Never start with that. Letter content formats. The first type of format that you can do in a cover letter is called paragraph format. When you do paragraph format, notice that you have the different paragraphs here. So you have, it's all paragraphs, basically. You see paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Now, there are particular advantages to doing a paragraph format cover letter. Number 1, it's the most simple design. All you literally do is just write 3 to 5 paragraphs, and you don't have to do much other than make sure you don't indent and then make them block paragraphs, keep the same header and such and all that, and everything works out just fine. And it's straight English. Once again, one of the benefits of a cover letter is, remember, in resumes, you have to write everything in resume speak, and you may not get to say everything you want to say because maybe something you want to say doesn't really fit into a section and all that stuff. So here's your chance to just talk like a normal human being and to say, dear employer, here's why you should hire me. And so it's really nice. You have 3 to 5 paragraphs to write to an employer and tell them exactly why they should hire you. And it's traditional. This is what most people expect when you write a cover letter. In fact, when I probably said cover letters throughout the lecture and everything you believed up until you watched this lecture, this is probably what you thought a cover letter was. And it is. This is a possible cover letter that you can do. But there are other types of cover letters that you can do as well that are not this. Now, there are disadvantages. There's trade-offs to everything, so there's not going to be a perfect cover letter for every situation. You have to look at your situation and decide, what do you think is going to be best given my qualifications for the position that I'm trying to get into, based on where I've came from. Nothing is highlighted. So the one thing about the paragraph format cover letters, I pretty much have to read the whole thing, right? Or at least skim the lead sentences and hope that the key things that you get are seen. But you can see in a paragraph cover letter what stands out here, like just by looking at it. Nothing. I mean, everything blends together because it's 5 paragraphs. So you're not really highlighting anything, and that might be okay. If you want me to read the whole thing and such, you just have to hope I want to read the whole thing and such. So eye scanning can be difficult too. Now we try to fight that by doing small chunk paragraphs. So you notice that, 5, you have a 6th one here, but then 5, 5, and 2. 5 and 2 here. So that helps with the eye scanning. So that's how we sort of fight that disadvantage. But yeah, like you can't scan it as quickly as the other 2 formats that I'll show you in a second. Here's another example of a paragraph format. You might have seen this example already earlier in the lecture. But yeah, this is your typical paragraph format cover letter. You expect it. It's traditional, 5 paragraphs. Everything's within less than 5 lines. It looks fine. But then you have a second type of cover letter, and I've called it different things, but now I call it comparison format. Now notice how this cover letter looks. You still have the header and the inside address. Now this person forgot the date, so, -1 for no date, but okay. And then we had to cover the who it was addressed to. But you have an opening paragraph, and this is and we'll talk about what you should put for your opening paragraph. But you see the meat of the cover letter is this little T-chart. And what you're going to do is you're going to quote from the job posting directly. So you have your requirements, and then you have me, and you can call it different things. You call it my qualifications, myself, your job, whatever. And then you quote directly from the job posting, and then you make a direct case for how you meet that particular requirement. So it says writing online articles and blog posts for industry publications. Much of my previous work was focused on social media content and very flexible and well-informed. Writing press releases. I wrote press releases and so you can see I'm literally calling out every part of the job posting and then replying to it to show that I am qualified for it. Now this was for a tech company, so like being able to operate a Nerf gun. Yeah, so I mean it's, so you have fun with it because it was a tech company. Okay, and this person got an interview, which is great. So this is the comparison format. This is going to be what you're going to put the focus on. Now, there are some great advantages to this format. Number 1, it makes qualifications very apparent because literally I do all the work for you by comparing myself to the requirements directly. Secondly, it's easy to eye scan. You can easily scan this T-chart in a few seconds and see all the qualifications and get to the end, compared to the paragraph format where you kind of had to actually read it. But there are disadvantages to this. So this is where you have to think about whether this is going to be a good format for you or not. This only works when you're a perfect match for the position. So if you feel like you look at the job posting and you go, I am perfect for this. This job posting is a love letter to me, and I meet every single qualification, then use this. But if you only meet, like, let's say 3 of the qualifications and there's like 10, if you're only going to show 3 of them, it's going to make you look really weak. And if you put 7, but you only actually meet 3, it's going to make that disparity even worse. So this is only really useful when you really are a perfect match for the position, and you can list most, if not all, of the requirements. Now, it might be hard to keep it 1 page if you list all of them. So definitely list the most difficult ones. Like, list the ones that you know are probably going to be the most critical, and the ones that other people are less likely going to meet. Okay? And then it's a little bit less straight talking too, because in the paragraph format, you just get to talk. You get to write and you get to say, here's why I'm qualified. It's like a little speech. Here, like, you have one opening paragraph to open to just basically grab their attention, and then you immediately transition to the T-chart, and then you close real fast, but that's it. So you're not going to get that opportunity to really tell your story. You're just going to be basically saying, here are your requirements, here am I. Great. There's not a lot of opportunity to tell your story like you would in a paragraph format. But still, it can be really good. Here's one that a student did. She did an awesome job with this. So she has the date, and then she addressed to the company. Okay, fine. All right, so starts with a good lead sentence, all that stuff, and then here you see the chart. And so what you want, what I have to offer, she bolds like some critical keywords and such, which is great. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to go back. Okay, so she bolds all this stuff, which is great. So really good job. Add some design to it. Closes the paragraph, gets it in a page. So really well done. Good job. So this is what these T-charts can look like, or these comparison formats, cover letters can look like. And then thirdly, you have bullet point format. Now with bullet point format, it looks like sort of like a paragraph format. So you still have your opening paragraph, but instead of doing a T-chart, what you're going to do is you're going to do bullet points. Now you're just not going to do bullet point leadership. You're going to do a headline plus a story. So the headline is leadership. And even then, this was like in my early resume writing days, so this could still be better. I could probably do a full sentence, but okay. Anyway, but you can still have a headline and then a story explaining the headline. So the bullet point is going to be the thing that you want me to really notice the most. Leadership, general management, and board relations, because the job posting said these are the 3 things that we're looking for. So, because the job posting literally broke it down into these 3 categories. So what we did was we matched the 3 categories and we put the category in bold, and then we just explained how we met that category. So you can do that with a bullet point cover letter, and then just highlight what are your key selling points in bold, and then tell the story of each selling point in the text. So headline, story. Oh, headline plus story, the golden ratio of resumes in the job search. Yep. And then close it out, and there you go. The advantages to bullet point format. Number 1, it uses some of both styles. So you get some of paragraph format because you still get to talk, but you kind of get T-chart a little bit because you can still say sort of like how I meet the qualifications, but it's not so direct and apparent as the comparison format. So it's still in text. And it's easy to eye scan because at the very least, I can look at the bullet points and read straight down that way, and at least notice you're offering leadership, general management, and board relations. And then if I'm interested in reading the next stuff, I can, but at least I get that stuff immediately. The disadvantages to this, though, is that it can appear generic because there are places where you can personalize, but because it's bullet points, it doesn't have that personal touch as paragraph. So, and then the comparison format has to be hyper personalized to match the job posting, but this, it doesn't have that same effort required. So it can appear generic. Here's my cover letter for a job that I got at ACC. So this is what I used to get a job, and as of this recording, I'm still at ACC. So I did something right. Okay, so I start with the inside address. I address it to a person. I found out who the department chair was. I addressed it to her. So it didn't say in the job posting what her name was. So I looked it up on the website. Great. All right, so open up, and then I have my headline plus my story. And so notice that my headlines are full sentences, and then I have the story to support each headline. So they know my selling points right away. So then when I go to the interview, my interview is basically a rehash of this. And then I close out, and then I blocked my signature. So I have my real signature here, but I just don't want to hand it out because I don't want people forging me. And yeah, there's that. Next, let's talk about the content sandwich. So now we just looked at the formats of cover letters. Like, what type of cover letter do you want to do? It just depends on your situation, what works for you, and what you think is going to make you look most qualified for the job. Now, what exactly do you write? That's probably the thing you've been waiting for, is what do I write? Okay, here we go. The content sandwich. So first, to understand the content sandwich, let's think of the classic car commercial, at least back in the old days. So the classic car commercial goes something like this. The 2020 Honda Civic, 30 miles per gallon, electric vehicle, 5-star safety rating, goes really fast. Go to your local Honda dealer today to buy your 2020 Honda Civic. Okay? So there are 3 parts to this commercials. Here's the car, 2020 Honda Civic. Here's what it is. Here's why it's awesome. 30 miles per gallon, electric vehicle, 5-star safety, and here's how you can get it. Go to your local Honda dealer today. Here it is. Here's why it's awesome. Here's how you can get it. That's all you need to have in a commercial. So, in a cover letter, here's what you write. First paragraph, here I am. You're going to start with an attention getter. You want to have a strong lead sentence as the first sentence of your cover letter. You do not want to start like this. Dear company, I'm writing to apply for the engineering position. No. Start with an attention getter. Start with something not obvious. Start with something that's enticing. Start with a quote. Start with a personal statement about who you are as a biographical statement. Ever since I was a kid, I used to do blah, 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 blah. Start with something intriguing that will grab my attention, that's not boring, okay? Then, identify the position you're targeting. After you state your attention grabber, and maybe you build up a little bit, then mention the position. Say, now, therefore, I think I'm a good fit for the blah, 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 blah position. If you have any referrals, by the way, so this is another reason you have cover letters. If you know somebody in the company and you want to, and they vouch for you, in the cover letter, you should mention that person's name somewhere. And I would do it in the first paragraph. So I would say something like, dear company, ever since I was a kid, I've always loved playing with Legos, and that's evolved into building buildings. And now I'd like to become an architect. And when I heard from John Smith, the president, and that you guys were hiring, blah, 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 blah. John told me that I would be a good fit for the position, and I think so too. Here's why. Okay, boom. Drop the name, and there you go. One thing you're going to want to provide in the first paragraph is a qualification thesis statement. So just like you learn in English Comp 1, when you write an essay, you always start out with the thesis, and you make the thesis apparent in the introduction. You're going to do the same thing in a cover letter. Your qualification thesis statement is essentially, in one statement, why you're qualified for this job. And it can be your selling points in one sentence. And then your cover letter is going to unpack that statement in the next paragraphs. So you want to have a thesis statement. Here's why I'm qualified for the position, because I offer experience, I offer education, and I offer the knowledge to solve your problems. Okay, that's a thesis statement. So, and then preview your selling point for the position. Now, your thesis statement can do that. It can also preview as well. But if you didn't do that in your thesis statement, make sure you have a preview then. So here's an example of what a paragraph cover letter can start. This is what a student wrote. So she was applying for an internship at Ubisoft. And so here's how she starts. Dear Ubisoft, my life since the age of 5 has revolved around the question, what new video game is going to be released this month? Okay, beautiful lead sentence. Start with something intriguing. Don't go, Dear Ubisoft, I'm applying for the internship. No, we don't care about that right now. Get our attention. Growing up around a group of boys, this is bound to be true. My 15 years of video game knowledge are what drew me to my college major and ultimately for this position for a public relations internship at Ubisoft. So she identifies the position here. Instead of putting it here, like that's a waste of space and a waste of opportunity to get attention, she just puts it in the middle. That's fine. Okay. Seeing as how Ubisoft is committed to delivering original, memorable gaming experiences across all popular platforms, so some personalization there, we'll talk about that. My superior sales experience and knowledge of gamers' needs, so that's going to be two of her reasons why she should be hired, are sure to bring about original ideas from a female's point of view, okay? So she's going to argue that her sales experience and her knowledge of a gamer's needs from a female point of view are the two reasons why she should be hired for this internship. She did this all in the first paragraph. She grabs our attention, she says what she's going to apply for, and then she gives us the preview of the arguments that she's going to make in the cover letter. Well done. So that's what you need to do in your cover letter. Regardless of the three formats that you go with, paragraph, bullet point, or comparison, you're still going to have this first paragraph in either of the three formats. So the first paragraph has to be good. Then you have the middle paragraphs. Now, once again, it kind of varies in terms of which format you go with. But in either case, the middle paragraphs in either of the three cover letter styles are essentially saying this: here's why I'm valuable to you. I used to call it here's why I'm qualified, but I want you to think more than just qualification. I want you to think in terms of value. What value are you going to add to the company? Not just how do you meet the minimum requirements, right? It's here's how you're going to profit from me, not just here's how I meet the minimum requirements, okay? So you want to explain your selling points. So now those selling points that you mentioned and previewed in the first paragraph, you're now going to unpack those and give the story behind each of those selling points. You're going to make evidentiary arguments. You're going to say, based on my experience working here, or what I did in school suggests that I will do well here, and such. That's what you want to be able to unpack in your selling points. Then, you want to mention specifics from the job posting. So part of personalization is making sure you're talking about the job posting directly. Because when the employer is reading your cover letter, they're not just reading your cover letter in a vacuum. They're reading your cover letter in the context of comparing it to what the job postings require and what they think their ideal candidate is. You want to make that bridge between the job posting and your resume by making those connections for the employer. That's why a cover letter complements your resume. It doesn't repeat it, because your job of the cover letter is to be the bridge between the resume and the job posting. It's to make those connections for the employer, so the employer doesn't have to think and do it for themselves, because if the employer is left to their own thinking and doing, they're probably not going to do it. And then use keywords. So use keywords from the job posting and show that you did research about the company. That's all part of personalization. Talk about the website. We'll talk about personalization later. So here's an example of some middle paragraphs from an account manager. So I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but you can pause the video and read the whole thing. But you can see here that he's talking about his 3 selling points. So building strong relationships and generating leads, and then also team player attitude, and then he has a passion for education and technology. Okay? So good lead sentences, and then expands on them and talks about his company a lot, or the company he's applying to a lot. Then you have the last paragraph, which is, here is how you can get me. So this is your closing paragraph. Some things you want to do. First, you want to summarize your qualification thesis. So basically restate your qualification thesis. Why is it that you're qualified? You stated it in the first paragraph, and the middle paragraphs, you reaffirmed it, and now you're summarizing it one more time. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Then mention the company's mission. This is my favorite place to mention the company's mission, either in the first paragraph or in the last paragraph. Go to the website, look up the company's mission and values. There's always a mission statement or value statement or something that says, here's what the company cares about. Okay, great. Mention their mission, talk about how you fulfill their mission. Explain how you can be contacted. Now, there's 2 ways to end a cover letter in terms of contact. You can end actively or you can end passively. When you end actively, what you're doing is you're saying, I will call you on Monday, 2 o'clock to follow up on this letter and to see if I can answer any questions that you may have about my candidacy. So when you end active, what you're saying is, by the time you read this cover letter, I'm going to call you. I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to take the initiative to call you next week, and then I'm going to follow up on my application and resume. Okay? That's the active close. The passive close is, you call me. If you're interested in talking more, please call me at this number, blah, 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 or don't say call me, just say please call me or please email me. And you're putting it on the employer to reach out to you. So which one do you do? Well, it just depends. So if you have the ability to actively follow up on a job posting, if like the recruiter is listed, if it's very clear who you can contact about the position, I would end active. So what I would do is I would submit the resume and cover letter, and then I would maybe give them a week to look at it, and then I would call next week, and I would call the person at the time I said I would, and then I would follow up with the resume and cover letter. If that's not possible, if there's no information given, it seems very private and all that stuff, then just end passively and then just hope somebody calls you. But either way, you got to explain that in the closing. And then thank the reader. Thank them for their time and considerations. Just a good way to end with goodwill. So here's a way to end. If we go back to the Ubisoft intern. So furthermore, my passion for gaming has gone beyond just a part-time hobby. For me, gaming is a lifestyle. Over the years, I've developed a desire for expanding my gaming knowledge and would love to merge my passion for gaming into my future career. With Ubisoft being a leading producer, publisher, and distributor, so taking from the website, I would like to aid in your endeavors of delivering gaming products to households worldwide. I look forward to hearing back about your internship. If you have any questions, so she ends passive, that's fine. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Signs off. Beautiful. One of the best cover letters I've read from a student. She did a really great job. Good job, person. Then you have your closing signature and enclosures. So this is your closing line, and sincerely. I don't recommend sincerely yours. Yours truly. You know, what are we in love now? Are we dating? Okay, so no. And then you have your full name. Now, you have the option of putting your signature, and you can do that through a lot of ways. Like you can open Word on your iPad or tablet and sign it that way. You can take a picture of your signature and then just insert it as a picture. So a lot of ways you can do that. I like to do it because, once again, lazy people don't do this. Lazy people just leave the blanks here. So I like to put my signature in, and then it makes my cover letter look better than everybody else's. So once again, if you want to do the thing that lazy people won't do. If it's easy, everyone does it. So the hard thing is what people avoid doing. So when you do the hard thing, you are standing out because you're doing the thing that most people avoid doing. But if you don't really want to do that, like if you don't really want to do the signature for whatever reason, then you can also just delete this spacing here, and then you would just have one space between sincerely and then your name. And then you have the enclosure here. And that's pretty much, that's all you do for that part. You don't need to put your address. So this is one thing. People put their address underneath. No, you don't need to put your address because it's already in the header. Your header already has your contact info, so you don't need to put that in there. The other thing too, when you do the closing, if you say, please call or email me, you do not need to put your email and phone number in the sentences because that's also already at top in the header. When you say, please call or email me, it's implied that they need to call you or email you at the address provided in the header. So don't waste lines putting in your phone number or putting in your email again because you already have that at the top of your resume, or well, your resume and your cover letter. So you don't need to put it in again. Lastly, let's talk about personalization. This is the critical part of the cover letter because generic cover letters stink, they smell bad, and they get thrown away. So you want to make sure you have good personalization, and here's what you need to think about. First, there's different aspects of the cover letter that you can personalize. First, I would personalize the inside address. Of course, you have to have an inside address in the cover letter, so definitely that's going to be personalized no matter what. Then the salutation. Now, I showed you a hierarchy of who to write the letter to based on the information available, but you always want to write to an actual person. It should be a very sad situation if you have to write to a company. And then their job title, and then their particular job title, and then, the job title you're applying to. So you want to make sure now here's the thing. Companies might have different names for the same job title. So one company might call it customer service expert, and then another company might call it the customer experience specialist. So part of personalization is changing it to match whatever the company calls it. If a company calls it customer service, then your cover letter needs to use the phrasing customer service. If your company calls it client service, then you need to call it client service. Don't mix up don't use different words because that's part of the personalization. And then once again, quoting from the job posting and quoting keywords. Then the company mission and values. This is like the heart. And so when you take that time to look up the company, look up stuff on their website, learn about them, and quote things about their missions and values. Once again, lazy people don't do this. So 60 to 70% of people are lazy, usually when they apply for a job. So if you want to be in the top 30%, automatically do these things. And then company website and social media. You can also quote things from that as well. If you go from their website, or if you look at their social media and you want to say something like, I noticed on the company's Twitter page that you guys are growing exponentially, blah, blah, blah. Cool. I think that's totally fine to do that in the cover letter. So here's how it would work then with cover letter. So you would probably write I don't even have this, but you could have a master cover letter that's like covers everything. But once again, just like a resume, you'll have a generic accounting and a generic project management cover letter. Now the cover letters are going to be written specifically for these types of job skills. So just like your resume, you'll have an accounting resume and a project management and so forth. And then you're going to have company specific cover letters, and they're going to be super tailored to that specific company. So let's say you're looking at accounting jobs and you're like, okay, I want to apply for a job at Davy Jones corporation. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your generic accounting cover letter, and then you're going to make a Davy Jones Corporation cover letter based off your accounting cover letter. And then you're just going to make specific adjustments to that cover letter, and then you'll submit that to the Davy Jones Corporation. Now, a way to save yourself time. So this is what I would do for clients when I did cover letter writing for them. I would make them a template sort of like this. So you would have the date, and there was a header and stuff, but I just anonymous stuff. Okay, so, and then I would tell them, okay, here's the inside address. Now, here's something else you can do. If you're really worried, like some people are like, I'm worried that if I don't in the first sentence say, the job I'm applying for. The employer's not going to know what I'm applying for. Okay, so if you're just super worried about that, here's what you can do. Between the inside address and the opening, you can put RE. RE stands for regarding, and then put the job title and requisition number here, and that solves that problem. And then you don't have to start off, once again, lame. Okay, so then what I do is I just have spots in the cover letter that leave it open to personalization. So he does a bullet point format because that's easiest for generic reasons. And then I just tell him where to add some personalization. So you can do the same thing with your job generic cover letter, is just, okay, know what spots need to be adjusted each time you apply for a job. And then by the time it's done, you'll know it'll look like it's personalized, even though most of it was already pre-written. So doing something like this will probably take 15 minutes or so, but it's worth 15 minutes if I only have to apply for 5 jobs and I get 3 interviews because everything is hyper specific to them. The other thing too is, this is so important, and here's another reason why it's important. When I got my first job post-grad school at the nonprofit, I did the work of looking up who the HR person was because it didn't have a name. And so I just addressed it to the HR person generically because I could find that on the website. And when I got my interview, that was one of the first things they said. They said, I noticed on your cover letter, you addressed it to me, because it ended up interviewing with the HR person first. And I thought that was really cool. And so I was like, yeah, of course. So that's why I really teach personalization, because that can impress people that you do that. Okay? So think of it that way. 10, 15 minutes, but that 10, 15 minutes could be worth $80,000 of salary and healthcare and benefits. So it's worth the time to do this. So as a review, you have the anatomy of a cover letter. We talked about the different parts. Make sure you have all the parts in your cover letter. If you're in my professional comm class, you're going to be expected to. You looked at 3 different content formats and the trade-offs of each one. There's not a perfect format, but there are formats that are probably more competitive and ideal for your situation. You just have to know what your situation is. Then we looked at the content sandwich, so you know exactly what to write in each section of the cover letter. And then we talked about personalization, because personalization is key to a good cover letter. So that's all for cover letters. Hopefully now you can go write some awesome cover letters. You know exactly what to do, how to strategize, and how to visualize it. So go make it happen and go make money.